Just over 3 years ago, one of my good 18-year-old friends took me up in a Cessna 182. Ever since then, I've been hooked on becoming a pilot and have completely fallen in love with aviation. Whether you're old or young, it's not too late to get your pilot's license. Here's everything you need to know. Hi, I'm Benji. I'm a 21-year-old student pilot with over 46 hours logged in my logbook, and I'm here to help you get on the right track to getting your private pilot's license. Before you even start private pilot training, book a free discovery flight at your local airport to see if that's something you really want to pursue. It will give you great insight and will be a lot of fun. It will also give you the opportunity to network or ask as many questions that you might have about the process. Here's the simple breakdown. You need to do 2 things. Take and pass the written exam and the practical exam. The practical exam consists of 2 portions, the oral and the flight. We will cover this more in depth in the future. As for the written exam, it consists of 60 questions and you have a total of 2.5 hours to take the test. A great deal of it involves flight planning, weight and balance, and general rules and regulations. Make sure you study enough in advance as you will need to attain a 70% or higher to pass. The knowledge test costs about $170 up front. Before you're eligible to take the written exam, however, you will need to take an online ground school or a ground school course and receive an endorsement to take the test. You can do this online with Sporty's online ground school or Flight 8 Mike Alpha ground school. Links are in the description below. Moving on to the flight requirements. You will need a total of 40 hours of flight training in order to legally take your check ride. 20 of those hours will need to be dual instruction with your CFI, and 10 hours are required for solo time. Of those 10 hours, 5 hours are required for solo cross-country flights, with 1 cross-country flight exceeding 150 nautical miles to a full stop touchdown at 2 different airports. For dual flights, you will need at least 3 hours of cross-country flight time, 3 hours of night flight training with your flight instructor, and 10 takeoffs and landings to a full stop, 3 hours of simulated hood or instrument time, and 3 hours of check ride prep, which you will learn about later. On the day of your check ride, you will be expected to land on your points, know and perform all the basic maneuvers, and be expected to plan cross-country flights and know all of your emergency procedures. You must also maintain your desired altitude plus or minus 100 feet, and your heading plus or minus 10 degrees for all turns and steep turns. The standards are reasonably challenging, but after a couple of weeks of practicing, you'll be amazed on how quickly and smoothly you can perform all these maneuvers. Memorizing your checklists are really important, and this is why chair flying really helps for this reason and for saving money. The cost of flying can add up pretty quickly. At my flight school, I pay $135 per hour for dual instruction and for gas and rental fees. But the availability is always pretty good and the planes are well taken care of, so it's not a bad deal. Before you can solo, you must have at least a 3rd class medical, a student pilot certificate, a government photo issued ID, and endorsement from your CFI. My first solo was after about 33 hours of flight training and everything felt really natural. Before I knew it, I was already in the air and I was going through my checklist and saying them out loud just like I had practiced. I was too busy focusing on what I had to do that I didn't even have time to be nervous or scared. It honestly felt like a natural transition. But I did notice how much faster the airplane climbed without that extra weight in the cockpit. It hit me after my first touch and go that I'm flying an airplane all by myself and communicating with tower and landing it on the runway. It was a real confidence booster to realize I landed an airplane without any safety net. Each flight school goes through different arrangements of the flight training process. At my flight school, we have 3 different stages of flight training. Stage 1 is strictly in the practice area about 10 or so miles south or southwest of the Class Delta airspace from Walla Walla Regional Airport. During Stage 1, we practice all the ground reference maneuvers. We practice stalls, and we practice emergency frequencies and procedures, and tower communications, and general takeoff and landing configurations. In Stage 2, we primarily focus on cross-country flights and navigating using all 3 sources of navigation: pilotage, dead reckoning, and radio navigation. Cross-country flights were my favorite part of training. And Stage 3 focuses primarily on getting your solo hours in and doing your long-awaited 150 nautical mile solo cross-country flight. After all of your 40 hours are completed and you fulfilled all of the FAA's subdivision regulations to standards with your CFI, then you will be prepared for your check ride. The check ride consists of 1 hour of oral portion and then a 2 to 3 hour flight portion, where you practice all of your maneuvers to standards and then go through all of the takeoff and landing configurations. After you pass everything, you will then be given the first and greatest achievement in aviation, which is your private pilot certificate. If you kept your hours low and your training time focused, you will have spent about $5,400 for 40 hours of flight training, including rental fees, gas, and CFI instruction time. In addition, with the ground test and the DPE, Designated Pilot Examiner, you will have spent a total of $6,170 to about $6,570, not including any additional fees or charges that might be included. It is not unusual or unlikely to spend more than 50 to 60 hours of flight time or spend upwards of $10,000 for your private pilot's license. To keep costs low, you will actually want to spend a lot more money up front and fly consecutive days in a row to keep your skills and knowledge up, at least 2 to 3 times a week for a couple of months. There is not a set amount of time in which you are limited to get your license in. Some student pilots stretch their time out over 2 or more years, while others try and get their license within a few months. It is possible to get your license in 2 months, if you're really ambitious and willing to pay more money up front and have the time to focus on it. But for the average person, it will probably take you between 6 to 8 months at a moderate pace. By the end of your training, you will be surprised how much you've grown and how far you've come. I hope this sheds some light and more clarity on how to get your private pilot's license. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, or if something wasn't made clear, please leave a comment down below. I really love hearing back from you guys. Here's something to comment if you want. Tell me if you plan to get your private pilot's license, and tell me your age if you want to. I bet there will be a great variety of ages. Anyways, thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing and hit that like button and click the bell so you can get notifications whenever I post new videos. Until next time guys, see you in the air.